Special welcome if you're watching live or on demand at a later point in time. And before we get started this morning, I just wanted to take a moment to address something that happened last week. Some of you were here. Some of you maybe saw it online on the YouTube video. But we had an incident during the message where someone disagreed with what was being said loudly, and we did usher them out. But I just wanted to take a moment to address a couple things related to that. So one is how we handle disagreement as a church, as a community. Because while Matt and I and Dawn and the teaching team, we preach the Bible to the best of our ability, and we believe what we believe very strongly, this is also a church where we welcome disagreement. We don't require everyone think just like us, because you'll never find a community of people that think exactly alike about every single thing. And so what marks us out as a community of God's people isn't the fact that we think alike on every little thing. It's more how we handle those disagreements. It's that we're able to disagree and still stay in communion and connection with people. And so I just want to make sure that you guys know, if there's ever a question that you have or something that you're not sure about, my door is open. Matt's door is open. The whole pastoral staff and team and board, our doors are open to you guys, because we want to be able to have those conversations and model in here, but also for the community, what it looks like to disagree and to stay connected with each other. So I think that's important just to name and mention, and we'll keep talking about that in different ways over the coming months and years. But also, just want to let you know that we do have a plan in place. We want to make sure our first priority when people are here is that they feel safe. And thankfully, there was nothing violent or unsafe that happened last week. But just want to let you guys know that we do have a plan in place to handle disturbances like that, and that the pastoral staff and the board will be reviewing that plan and making any updates as necessary, just because we value your safety and your kids' safety above anything else when you're in this space. So that's that. Anyway, I just also want to take a moment to introduce our guest speaker this morning. Darci Morris has been a part of the Santa Cruz Bible community for a few years now. She is a social worker and a therapist, also a really gifted teacher. She's been a part of helping lead the Grief Share ministry here at Santa Cruz Bible. She was a co-teacher with Don Lindholm and I for the trauma class that we led here last fall. And she is just an incredibly gifted teacher. And so we've invited her to come and speak this morning and preach the word to you guys. And so I just want to invite Darci up, and you guys are in for a big treat this morning. So let's give her a big welcome.
Thank you. Okay, I made it without falling on the stairs. Hey, so it's really good to be here. Thank you for having me. I was thinking this morning that when I was 10, I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, I think I want to be a pastor." And my dad, he really meant well, but he said, "Girls can't be pastors, but I think you'd make a really good pastor's wife." And I actually don't think I would make a really good pastor's wife. I like my husband. I think I'm a good Bill's wife. But if you know me, I probably wouldn't be a very good pastor's wife. But it's such an honor to be here this morning, to be able to speak and to stand where Matt stands and Scott stands and Don stands. It just feels awesome and like such a privilege. So thank you so much for having me. We've been journeying through the parables, which are stories that have been told generation after generation. I raised 5 kids, and some of my most cherished memories are telling stories around the campfire. The kids would always want the same stories every year. Tell the one about when you worked in the prison. And we would tell them, and I think the stories were such a great, I did work in a prison. I wasn't in prison. And I think these stories around the campfire that were told again and again were ways for our kids to get to know the character of us as parents and as people. And I think it's the same thing for the parables that we've been covering. You know, they're ways for us to get to know God in a new way and to know his character. And I hope that today's parable feels like one of your old favorites and that it will stir something new in each of us. So let's take a look at the parable of the lost sheep. In Luke 15, suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts the sheep on his shoulders and goes home. And then he calls his friends and together, and he says, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. Now, this story resonates really deeply with me because while I'm not a pastor and I am not a theologian, I am indeed someone who gets lost a lot. I lose my keys. I lose my sense of direction. I lose my mind. I wasn't going to say this, but today I lost my breakfast. I didn't throw up. I had a breakfast burrito, and I put it down, and I literally couldn't find it. And you know, as a follower of Jesus in a weary and harsh world, I have to admit that sometimes I lose hope. Do you? I think we can all relate to losing hope. It's ironic, you know, that I am an expert in getting lost because for 9 years now, in addition to being a life coach and a therapist and a social worker, I've also been a leader of hikes. I have a business called Walk Strong Coaching, and ironically, the tagline is, "Find your way." This from a person who can't find my own way. And I think as a group leader, my calling is to help people stay on course, even though maybe sometimes I can't stay on course, or maybe because of that. So let's take a look at the key actors in this very simple but powerful story. We have the shepherd, and we've all focused a lot on the shepherd when we've heard this story. We have the sheep that's lost, and I want to really point out that to be lost means you want to be found. So this is not a sheep that is rebelling and running away and saying, "Leave me alone." This is a sheep who is confused and can't find its way back. We have the flock, right? Sheep are not individual creatures. They thrive and belong to the group. And then we have a community of people that rejoice. And we're going to look at the shepherd because, of course, the shepherd who represents our God is a key component of the story. But I think sometimes a really overlooked part of the story is that I truly believe that this story is at its core a story about the flock. I believe it's a story about community. It's about worry and fear that ends in celebration. And we know this because we see this throughout Luke 15. There are 3 stories, and they're all about being lost and being found. We have the widow who loses a coin, and she's frantic, and she finds it, and she gathers all of her friends and says, "Come celebrate with me." We have the prodigal son who runs away. That's a whole different issue that we're going to cover. And when he returns, the father says, "Rejoice, we're going to have a great big party." And then we have our little sheep who wanders off, who is at peril of maybe being eaten by a wolf or another predator. And the shepherd comes, puts her on his shoulder, and brings her back into the community where there's rejoicing and praise. There's no judgment. There's no shame. There's no hint of isolation as the lost are returned to a community who loves them, supports them, and sees them. And you know, I've had to do a lot of research about sheep the last few weeks, and they're really fascinating. I might have to go get one. Sorry, I won't. Do you know that, do you know that sheep, they don't just run away? So I've always kind of been a goat person. Goats run away, right? Goats leap, they rebel, they're super fun-loving, but they're just like all over the place. What I learned is that's not really how sheep are. Sheep actually know each other, they recognize each other, and what we know is that they get anxious when one of them leaves. They don't rebel necessarily. They don't want to be separated from the flock because the flock keeps them safe, but they find themselves out of the circle in peril. So this is what to me was so exciting when I was looking at this. I'd never really looked at this particular way before. Think about this. In order for a shepherd to leave 99 sheep, the shepherd has to trust the flock. The shepherd has to know that the flock are going to take care of each other. The shepherd has to know that the flock is going to protect each other. So here in this story, we've got the shepherd and the flock, and they're teammates. They're working together, right? If this were not the case, we would have the shepherd running after one sheep, coming back, and if they were goats, he would have 99 now lost sheep, right? It wouldn't make sense. I think sometimes this parable is presented as kind of this almost irresponsible shepherd who leaves everybody in chaos and he just hopes that they're okay, and then he brings one back like, hooray for the one, and the 99 are gone. That's really not what this story is about. If you know about sheep, they thrive together. They look out for each other. And so when the shepherd goes off to find the one, he puts the one on his shoulder and he brings it back to the 99 who are looking out for each other. So this is a story again of a shepherd who trusts in his flock. And I see this dynamic in my hikes all the time. I've led hikes all over California and beyond, and I can tell you that as a hike leader, in anything I do, my primary purpose is how can I build community? Yes, I want them to see great sights. Yes, I want people to be challenged, but my primary goal is, do people love each other and care about each other at the end of a hike, whether it's 2 hours or 5 days? My greatest joy when I do a hike is at the end, when people are hugging and they're exchanging phone numbers and they want to see each other again, because I feel like I've done something right. That is community. That is community. I took a group to Bryce Canyon in October, and my co-leader, Tracy's right down there. And it was cold, and there was a storm. And we hiked to the bottom of Bryce Canyon, and what goes down must go up, right? We had a very treacherous walk up these switchbacks where the snow had melted and they had become really icy. So it was taking a long time. One of our hikers became a little bit discouraged and tired and feeling like she was holding the group up. And she said, hey, you guys just go, and I'll just go at my own pace and find you later. And no, we're not going to leave somebody behind at the bottom of Bryce Canyon. It's just not something that we do. And so what I said was, hey, Tracy, you take the people that are going faster and you guys go ahead. And I said, hey, if anyone in the group wants to go at a head in the clouds pace and take a lot of pictures, I'll go with you and we will just take our time. So this woman was struggling. She was getting slower and slower, and we had to stop more and more. And I sent a text to my co-leader, and I said, why don't you guys just go ahead? I could see clouds. I could see like a storm coming in. It was getting late. And I said, you guys just go in and be warm, and I'll catch up with the rest of the group later. So we're trudging up these switchbacks. And at Bryce Canyon, it's like you literally pop out to the top. So you're in the canyon, you pop out. And as we popped out, myself and this hiker and a couple others, the other half of the group was literally jumping up and down. They were going crazy. They were cheering for us. They were yelling for us. They did one of those soccer tunnels for us, and we got to run through it. They celebrated the return of the lost sheep. And I said to someone, I said, wow, that was so great that you guys waited for me, waited for us. And she said, hey, you've taught us the group isn't whole until we're all back together. That moment is community. That moment is holy ground. Have you guys ever been at a party or church and you don't really know anyone and you go because you feel like you need to go and you're looking through the crowd and everybody's connecting, and then you see that one person that you know and their face lights up and they spot you and they make their way through the crowd and they give you a hug? That's like what it feels like to be found. Or have you ever been to a graduation, lots of those recently, and watched parents, right? The hats go up, everybody celebrates. All these people who are dressed exactly the same in caps and gowns go flooding into the field. And every parent, what are they doing? They're looking. They're scanning. Where's my kid? Where are they? Where's my kid? And I just love it because you just see their eyes meet, and the arms go out, and the embraces and the celebrations start. That's holy ground. What I've learned is that community is more than just a gathering. Anybody can get a group together. A Bible study, a hiking group, a book club, a sports team. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a community. What I've seen is community is kind of this beautiful, messy mix of catastrophe and joy. The best communities usually come when something crazy happens, like someone falls into the river, or there's bed bugs in the hotel, or somebody gets really heat stroke, or somebody goes really slow to wait for the person that's really struggling on the trail. And then there's rejoicing and celebration because we got through it together. Community, I believe, is fundamentally a choice that we make to love each other, to slow down for each other, to see each other. We are one for all and all for one. And now, who is this lost sheep, right? Who is this player of this sheep? I think when we look at the story, we always kind of think the sheep is some bad person. It's not really us. We're focused on the shepherd who loves this sheep that has kind of rebelled. But what I learned when I was really investigating this is that the word for lost in this passage, what it really means is it implies to be in desperate peril. If a sheep is disconnected from the flock, they're at risk for being attacked by a predator. So Jesus is talking about somebody in real danger, someone in need of rescue, and there's an urgency. And again, I want to make the point that the sheep wants to be rescued. And the word for sinner isn't necessarily like a non-believer or somebody outside of our circle. The word for sinner is basically just somebody who has missed the mark, somebody who has veered off course, somebody has fallen short. And don't we fall short and miss the mark and get off course all the time in our friendships and in our family and in our jobs? You guys, this parable is about us. It's not about them. We are the sheep. And I know in today's world, we don't like to be called sheep, right? We want to be goats, greatest of all time. But we are sheep that hear the voice of the shepherd. And I have to say that I have felt like a desperate, out-of-the-loop sheep many, many times. About 10 years ago now, I lost a very dear friend, Anita, who was one of the most important people in my life. She was like a sister to me. And she lived in Connecticut, and she died in Connecticut, and her husband asked me, would I fly out and be one of the people to give a eulogy and speak on her behalf. Well, the thing was, the memorial service was in January, and at the time, there was a huge storm. It was like this epic storm on the East Coast. All the airports were closing. It was really hard to get to Hartford. And so I made the commitment, and I said, Emmett, I'm going to try, but I can't guarantee it. But you know what? Worst happens, I get stuck in an airport. But I'm going to try my best to be there. So I asked my boss for the time off, and my boss said, no, you can't have the time off. And so I bought my plane ticket. And I really was a little concerned that I might not have a job when I got back. I got to the airport, yay, and it was chaos. You know those boards? Close, 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 close. Every flight had been canceled. There were people sleeping all over the airport who had been there for a couple days. There were people screaming about lost luggage that hadn't been connected. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and it was like Connecticut frigid. It is just bleak, right? And I'm bleak. I am just devastated and shattered and thinking, how in the world, what am I going to say to represent my friend in the best of ways? So her sister was going to pick me up at the airport, and her sister had spent the whole day next to her casket greeting people as they came to pay their respects. And I texted Jenny and I said, you know, you don't have to come get me. I'll get an Uber and I'll go get an Airbnb. And my plan was, I'm going to keep a really low profile. I'm going to get up and give my eulogy, and then I'm going to go to the back row, and then I'm going to go to my hotel and hopefully get home to a job that I have. Well, that's not how the story worked out, because Jenny said, oh no, I'm coming, sister, you just wait. And I waited and waited, and I looked up, and those moving doors, you know, they part, and in bounds this burst of energy, and it's Jenny, and her arms are like this, and she's running, and she says, Darcelita, which is what Anita used to call me. And she just puts her arms around me, and it was just this hug of deep pain and deep joy. And she said to me, I love you so much, Darci, and I'm so glad that you made it. The rest of that weekend, when the pastor said, hey, we need the family to come to a room, Jenny took my hand and she took my arm and she said, you're coming with me. When we had to find seating for the memorial service, she took me by the arm and she said, you're sitting in the front row with the family. When a song came on and I burst into tears because it brought back so many memories, she put her arm around me and she pulled me close. And that night we went to her house, in the cozy house in the cold, cold winter, and we just shared stories and we laughed hysterically and we cried. And it was hard to know, you know, which tears were of joy and which tears were of pain. I love you. I'm so glad you're here. That was the single most profound act of community I have ever experienced in my life. Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd time and time again in Scripture. He emphasizes it, I am the shepherd. I die for my flock. I am the shepherd. What we know about shepherds is that sheep know the shepherd's voice, and that sheep respond only to the shepherd's voice. There's this YouTube video that's circulating, and it's really cool because they have these random people who go to the side of a field where there's sheep, and they go, come on, sheep, and the sheep just like ignore. They're just like doing their thing. And they have 3 people try, and then this shepherd walks forward, and he's like 20 years old, and he's like, hey, sheep, and they stop what they're doing, and they look around, and as a group, they flock towards the shepherd. When you're lost, do you respond to his voice? When you're lost, do you hear the shepherd calling you? You guys, this isn't really a very complicated story. A sheep is lost. The shepherd finds the sheep. The shepherd puts the sheep on his shoulders, returns her to community, and they throw a party. I know the powerful and beautiful simplicity of this formula. And this is hard to speak to you all because this wasn't very long ago. But I have to confess to you that in much of 2024, I felt utterly lost. Lost to the point where, to be honest, I think I had lost my faith entirely. I think I didn't want the shepherd to find me because I didn't really think that the shepherd cared for me. My friend Carrie, another dear friend, another major player in my life, who I have known since I was 12, my partner in crime through literally every stage of life, died suddenly in 2024. The night before she died, I can tell you, I literally was on my knees on the floor praying that God would save her. And I believed that he would. I believed that he would save her. I trusted. But the next morning, we received the call at about 5 a.m. that Carrie had just passed away. And I was just, I don't even know. It's like the Jenga blocks that just scattered. I was just absolutely devastated. There are no words. And I lashed out at God. God, why do you continue to take away my friends? It just seems so cruel, you know? Why, God, are you not answering my prayers? Could you just save her for her kids' sake? Why are you taking mothers from their kids? Why do I keep praying, God, and you just don't seem to answer? Have you ever lamented like this? I think all of us at some point have just been like, why? Good shepherd, are you out there? Are you looking for me? Can you see that I'm lost? So 2 things happened following that. That same day, actually, a few people arrived in my living room, and I see them, they just sat there, and they were with me, and they loved me. And my flock, they showed up in so many countless ways. They asked me to go on hikes. They brought food. They texted me. I really didn't feel that I was alone, even though I felt like maybe God had abandoned me. And I think I clung to them because I could see that they loved Jesus. And if they did, maybe I could do that too. I got a text during that time, and it was really simple. This is the hard part, because she's right there. And it said, Darci Morris, I see you. It was the most powerful text I think I've ever gotten. Because the thing is, I knew that this person did see me. And I knew that this person knew that I was lost. And I also knew that this person knew that I wasn't going to give up on God, that there was no way. Sometimes I think, we know that we're loved by people, but at our core sometimes, I think what we're longing for is to be truly seen. The next thing that happened, maybe because I saw Jesus in their lives, maybe because I too knew at my core that I wanted to be found, is my laments changed from why, to God, where are you? Where are you? And when I started to ask God where, man, things just became easier because you know what God said? He's like, I am right here. I have led you through your life through very dark valleys, and I have led you figuratively and concretely up mountain peaks. I have never abandoned you. I have never forsaken you. I see you, and I am here. I'm running to you, and I love you, and I'm glad that you're here. I see you, Darci Morris. And he sees everyone here too. He's here with us. So 4 months later, my middle daughter got married, and I invited Carrie's husband to come to the wedding with their 2 kids. And to be honest, I really didn't expect that they would come. I felt like this loss for them was so fresh, and to come to Carrie's best friend's daughter's wedding, I just thought that just might be too much. But I extended the invitation, and my daughter got married at Roaring Camp, and at Roaring Camp, there's a little house if you're in the bridal party, and you hide back there. But the cool thing is you can see people trotting down, arriving for the wedding. So you get to spy on them and you see them come by. And so I was keeping my eye out for David and his kids, watching people come by. And every now someone would come by and I'd run out of the house. Who cares if I'm supposed to be hiding? And I would just give them a hug. And then here comes David and his 2 kids. And my stomach kind of dropped. And I just thought, oh gosh. And my daughters that were not getting married that day said, we were ready for this. We knew that this was going to come. And they ran out to David and his 2 kids with me. And we just surrounded them in a big, loving hug that was mixed with all that pain and all that joy. It didn't matter that it was a wedding. We can lament and we can celebrate. We can do it all. And so we embraced in this hug. And then later at the reception, I said to David, I'm just so thankful that you guys came. I wouldn't have necessarily expected that you came. And he said, Darci, we show up for our people. There is nowhere else that we would be except here. And he said, I have to admit that I was really touched when you extended the invitation to us because I didn't want our pain to be awkward for you. But he said, when I saw where you seated me, I burst into tears. David was seated at the head table with Bill and I and our family. And he was seated there because I wanted him to feel the same sense of community and love and support that I had felt 10 years earlier. You guys, we love because God first loved us. We love because others have first loved us. You have turned my mourning into dancing, says the psalmist. And that night, we danced. We danced our socks off. We celebrated and we cried. And sometimes it was hard to distinguish if the tears were tears of joy or tears of sorrow. And it really didn't matter because we were a community. And I look out here today as we are a community. And what I want to say, you guys, is we are the people of the crucifixion and the resurrection. We got this. We can do both. We can celebrate and we can lament and we can do it all together. And you know why? Because our shepherd is Jesus. Our shepherd is Jesus who ran to a tomb to raise his friend Lazarus from the dead. Our Jesus is the shepherd who hung up on a cross at his very worst moment, and he looked down and he saw his mother in pain and his friend John in pain, and he said, meet your mother, meet your son, and he drew them together in community. Our shepherd is Jesus who found Mary at the empty tomb, and she recognized his voice. And our Jesus, he even went after those disciples that ran away and disappeared because they were so afraid. And he said, hey, come to the beach. Let me make you breakfast. Hey, let's celebrate. God, what kind of shepherd is this? This is amazing. And then what did Jesus say? He said, go. Go make disciples. Be shepherds. Go find each other and bring each other back into the fold. We love because he first loved us. And I'm just saying to all of us, you guys, let's be brave. I sometimes worry that maybe we're giving up, and yet we're lonelier than ever, but I just sometimes worry that we're not working hard enough for each other, to love each other, to come together. We're lonelier than ever. Anxiety and depression are epidemic. Suicide is on the rise. We're lost in addictions, lost on our phones, lost in relationships. Everyone seems to be lost. Do you remember in COVID? That was some hard times that we went through. But the thing that strikes me about COVID is we worked really hard to be together. We were told, no, you can't be together. And what did we do? We socially distanced and had barbecues on the driveway. Or we took socially distanced walks on the beach. Or we worked out in parking lots. We found each other. We valued each other. And I hear this from my clients sometimes, that it's almost become socially acceptable not to show up for each other. Don't buy it. You guys, just don't buy this. It's codependent. I can't go get this person. I have to take care of myself. I'm not saying that we shouldn't practice self-care and self-love. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying in this broken world, we need each other. Absurd times call for absurd amounts of love. Let me say that again. Absurd times call for absurd amounts of love. And we are living in some absurd times for real. So let's be the ones we love because he first loved us. Let's emulate our shepherd. So here we are together, the lost and the found. My prayer for all of us in these absurd times is that we may be people of courage who show up bravely at the foot of the cross to suffer with those who are in pain. May we be people who notice when others fall behind. May we slow down for them. May we see those who are alienated and disenfranchised, struggling, whether they're in our homes, right in our living rooms, or whether they're in our communities or our workplace or in our world. Let's be people that see people. Let's be people that seek people out, love them, and bring them in to a loving community. The call for us is to make our families and our workplaces and our friends be havens. Because when the shepherd brings somebody back, it's up to us to be that safe landing place. It's up to us to see someone across the room and light up. It's up to us to open our arms and embrace somebody, whether it's an embrace of grief or an embrace of joy. May this body know others by name. We have to understand it's good to invite people, but if people don't have a map, they don't know how to come to us. We have to go out and bring them in to our community. The church is here, but the church is out there, and it's waiting for us. And finally, I want to say that I know, in bringing up my own pain, my own feelings of being lost, I know that this is a really universal feeling, and I know that there are many people here that might be feeling lost. And there are many people here that might feeling like the circle is drawn and you're outside the circle. And that's like a really lonely place to be. And sometimes we don't have answers for why we are the way we are and why we are living where we are. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I just want to beg you. Start asking Jesus where he is. Start asking him, is he there? Because I promise you, he has been with you, guiding you through valleys, taking you to clear waters. He restores our souls. He will never give up on you. He sees you and recognizes when you're lost. Please, please believe that God is here. Our shepherd has seen us. He's running to us. He's embracing us. And he's saying to us, I love you. I'm so glad that you're here. Can we bow our heads in prayer? Lord, you work in partnership with us, calling us to love one another. May we, as individuals and as families and as a congregation, be the safe landing place for those who are lost and want to be found in our communities and in our homes. God, may we be courageous people who notice when one of us is missing and bring them into our own warm embrace. May we boldly love, may we boldly seek, and may we rest in the knowledge that as you first loved us, so we love. I pray that those who are here, who are feeling in need of rescue, might have the vulnerability and courage to reach out and ask for help. May we always know that you will never leave us. You lead us beside still waters, and you restore our souls. For those in need of restoration, we pray you meet the presence and tenacity of a God who puts you on his shoulders and who carries you home. And may you be celebrated for the beautiful creation that you are. May the Lord bless you. May he shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you, and may he grant you peace. Amen.